The year was 1866. The United States, recently emerged from the ashes of the Civil War, was a nation grappling with profound change. The war had left deep scars on the American landscape, both physically and emotionally, and the country was in the throes of a tumultuous reconstruction. Reconstruction efforts were underway in the South, attempting to stitch the torn fabric of a nation divided. Communities were trying to rebuild their lives, and the government was striving to bring about a sense of unity and normalcy. Yet, amidst the turmoil, a different kind of upheaval was brewing in the West. The frontier was a land of opportunity, but also one of great danger and uncertainty. This era, marked by lawlessness and opportunity, would become a breeding ground for outlaws and legends, none more infamous than Jesse James. The West was a place where the rule of law was often tenuous, and those with a daring spirit could make a name for themselves, for better or worse. The American frontier, a symbol of both promise and peril, was a land where fortunes could be made and lost in the blink of an eye. It was a place where the brave and the foolhardy alike sought their destinies, often with little regard for the consequences. The discovery of gold in California had sparked a westward migration, drawing thousands in search of riches. This rush for gold brought a diverse array of people to the West, each with their own dreams and ambitions. This influx of people, coupled with the instability of the post-war period, created an environment ripe for lawlessness. The rapid growth of towns and the lack of established law enforcement meant that many areas were essentially lawless. Towns sprung up overnight, often lacking established law enforcement, leaving them vulnerable to those who operated outside the bounds of society. These burgeoning communities were fertile ground for those who sought to exploit the chaos for their own gain. It was within this volatile landscape that Jesse James, a young man hardened by the brutalities of war, would rise to notoriety. The chaos and lawlessness of the frontier provided the perfect backdrop for his transformation into one of the most infamous outlaws in American history. The son of a Baptist minister, James had witnessed firsthand the horrors of conflict, fighting for the Confederacy during the Civil War. His experiences during the war were brutal and harrowing, leaving him with a deep-seated sense of anger and disillusionment. These experiences left an indelible mark on his psyche, shaping his worldview and influencing the path he would ultimately choose. The war had not only hardened him, but also instilled in him a sense of rebellion and a desire to challenge authority. The war had instilled in him a deep distrust of authority and a willingness to resort to violence. This distrust was further fueled by the harsh realities of post-war life, where survival often depended on one's ability to take matters into their own hands. The stage was set for an unprecedented event, one that would forever etch Jesse James's name into the annals of American history, the first daylight peacetime bank robbery in the United States. This bold and audacious act would mark the beginning of a notorious career in crime. This audacious act, carried out in the small town of Liberty, Missouri, would send shockwaves through the nation, marking the beginning of a crime spree that would captivate and horrify the public in equal measure. The sheer brazenness of the robbery left an indelible impression on the American psyche. It was a turning point, not only in the life of Jesse James, but also in the narrative of the American West, forever linking his name with the era of outlaws and gunslingers. His exploits would become the stuff of legend, cementing his place in the annals of American folklore. Born in Missouri in 1847, Jesse Woodson James grew up amidst the escalating tensions between the North and South. Missouri, a border state, was a hotbed of conflict and division, with families and communities torn apart by differing loyalties. His family, staunch supporters of slavery, found themselves increasingly at odds with their anti-slavery neighbours. This ideological clash was not just a matter of political debate, but often erupted into violent confrontations. This volatile atmosphere, coupled with the outbreak of the Civil War in 1861, would have a profound impact on the young Jesse. The war's arrival brought chaos and destruction to his doorstep, shaping his worldview and future actions. At the tender age of 16, he enlisted in the Confederate Army, eager to defend his family's beliefs and way of life. He joined the ranks of guerrilla fighters known for their brutal tactics. These guerrilla units, often operating independently of the main Confederate forces, engaged in hit-and-run attacks, sabotage, and other forms of irregular warfare. The Civil War was a crucible that forged Jesse James into a hardened and ruthless individual. The relentless violence and constant threat of death left an indelible mark on him. He witnessed firsthand the horrors of combat, participating in raids, ambushes, and bloody skirmishes. These experiences were harrowing and brutal, exposing him to the darkest aspects of human nature. These experiences, far from deterring him from violence, desensitized him to its consequences. The line between right and wrong blurred, and the use of force became a means to an end. He became accustomed to operating outside the law, justifying his actions as a necessary response to the perceived injustices inflicted upon the South. This mindset would follow him long after the war ended. Following the Confederate defeat in 1865, Jesse and his brother Frank returned to Missouri, a land still reeling from the war's devastation. The South's infrastructure was in ruins, and its economy was shattered. The James brothers, once hailed as heroes by their Confederate sympathizers, now found themselves branded as outlaws by the victorious Union. The transition from soldiers to civilians was fraught with challenges and disillusionment. The James brothers, once hailed as heroes by their Confederate sympathizers, now found themselves branded as outlaws by the victorious Union. This shift in perception, coupled with the economic hardship that plagued the post-war South, fueled their resentment and pushed them further towards a life of crime. This shift in perception, coupled with the economic hardship that plagued the post-war South, fueled their resentment and pushed them further towards a life of crime. The South's economy was in shambles, and opportunities for legitimate work were scarce. The skills they had honed during the war marksmanship, horsemanship, and guerrilla tactics became tools of their new trade. They applied these skills to a new kind of warfare, robbing banks, trains, and stagecoaches. The chaos of the post-war period provided ample opportunity for men like Jesse James, desperate and disillusioned, to exploit the vulnerabilities of a nation struggling to rebuild. The lawlessness of the time made it easier for outlaws to operate with relative impunity. The robbery of the Clay County Savings Association in Liberty, Missouri, would be their most audacious act yet, propelling them onto the national stage and cementing their status as notorious outlaws. This daring heist marked the beginning of a long and infamous criminal career. The robbery of the Clay County Savings Association in Liberty, Missouri would be their most audacious act yet, propelling them onto the national stage and cementing their status as notorious outlaws. Their exploits captured the public's imagination, and they became legends in their own time, both feared and admired. The morning of February 13th, 1866, dawned like any other in Liberty, Missouri. The sun rose slowly, casting a golden hue over the sleepy town, and the air was filled with the sounds of roosters crowing and the distant murmur of the Missouri River. Unaware of the impending chaos, townsfolk went about their daily routines. Farmers brought their produce to market, children played in the streets, and shopkeepers opened their doors, ready for another day of business. The town square buzzed with activity, a hub of commerce and social interaction. The Clay County Savings Association, a modest brick building on the town square, stood as a symbol of stability and prosperity in a community still recovering from the war. It was a place where people felt secure, where their hard-earned money was safeguarded. Little did they know that this symbol of order was about to be shattered, marking a turning point in the history of the American West. The tranquility of Liberty was on the brink of being irrevocably altered. A group of men, their faces obscured by masks, rode into town, their arrival barely causing a stir in the bustling marketplace. They moved with a purpose, their horses' hooves clattering on the cobblestones, yet blending seamlessly into the morning's activities. These were no ordinary visitors. They were the notorious James Younger gang, led by the ruthless Jesse James. Known for their daring exploits and violent tendencies, the gang had become infamous across the region. Their target, the Clay County Savings Association, a repository of the town's wealth and a tempting prize for men living on the fringes of society. The bank held not just money but the hopes and dreams of Liberty's citizens. With calculated precision, the gang dismounted and stormed into the bank. Their movements were swift and coordinated, a testament to their experience and ruthlessness. Brandishing pistols and shouting threats, they demanded the terrified teller hand over all the cash. The teller, shaking with fear, complied, knowing that any resistance could mean certain death. The robbery was over in minutes. The gang's efficiency was chilling, leaving no room for error or hesitation. The outlaws, escaping with over $60,000, a king's ransom in those days, disappeared as quickly as they had come, leaving a trail of chaos and fear in their wake. The townspeople were left in shock, their sense of security shattered. News of the daring daylight robbery spread like wildfire, sending shockwaves through the nation. Newspapers across the country reported the audacious crime, capturing the public's imagination and fear. The audacity of the crime, committed in broad daylight and in the heart of a peaceful town, shocked and outraged the public. People demanded justice, calling for the capture and punishment of the outlaws. The robbery was a stark reminder of the lawlessness that plagued the post-war West, a region struggling to establish order and security. It highlighted the challenges faced by communities trying to rebuild and the ever-present threat of violence and anarchy. In the days that followed, the townspeople of Liberty gathered in small groups, discussing the robbery in hushed tones. Fear and uncertainty gripped the community as they wondered if the gang would return or if other outlaws would follow in their footsteps. Lawmen and posses were quickly formed, determined to track down the James Younger gang and bring them to justice. The hunt for the outlaws became a symbol of the broader struggle to impose law and order in the untamed West. The headlines in the newspapers served as a constant reminder of the robbery, keeping the story alive in the public consciousness. The daring heist became a legend, a tale of infamy that would be told and retold for generations. Slowly, life in Liberty began to return to normal. But the memory of that fateful day lingered. The robbery had left an indelible mark on the town and its people, a reminder of the fragility of peace and the ever-present shadow of lawlessness in the American West.